Today's episode is called The Number One Mindset Shift Every Mom Needs to Stay Calm, Even in the Chaos. So a little bit of a clickbaity title, but you have real answers, real solutions for us today, and I can't wait to get there. But before we start with the conversation, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, my name is Natalie Bacon, and I run the site momonpurpose.com. I have 3 young boys under 4 years old. I was a former attorney, and I retired as an attorney and got certified as a life coach, and have since used my tools to coach really thousands of women now on just how to enjoy your life more, right? I identify as a high achiever, and a lot of my clients do. And with that comes the downside of, wait a minute, I thought this was going to be easier. I thought I was going to feel happier. I thought on the other side of this thing, like, that's when I would be able to relax and like really enjoy life. And it doesn't matter if your kids are really little like mine or if they're older, it kind of all applies, where if you have that mindset of happiness is over there and then you keep trying to out achieve yourself, it doesn't work. And so I've used these tools for myself, and like I said, many clients, to really separate out achievement, which I'm all for still. I love setting a good goal. Like, that's awesome. But separating that out from happiness, and happiness can sound so big and vague. Like, what are we even talking about here? Right? Because there's the long-term fulfillment part of it, which I'm not really talking about here. I'm talking about the feeling of joy. And with that also of calm, of like, it's an ordinary Tuesday, and are you really feeling positive emotions? And this is not toxic positivity. It's not, we're just going to put blinders on and ignore everything. Instead, it's really about becoming more aware of your thoughts, which is really just your mindset, and then choosing a more deliberate, helpful mindset for your sake. Because like myself, most of my clients, they love being a mom. Like, if you ask them, do you love your kids? Did you always want to be a mom? Do you like being a mom? Generally speaking, they're going to say yes. But, if we're at happy hour or like we're really kind of diving into how they feel on a day-to-day experience, it feels heavier than they would like. And so my tools really help you make real practical shifts, kind of like going to the gym and lifting weights over the course of a year. Your body's going to be different. If you use tools over the course of a year for your mind, you are going to think and feel different in your everyday life.
Absolutely. So what was the moment that you realized that managing your mind was the essential skill for staying calm and present as a mom? Do you have an example, like an aha light bulb moment?
I actually do. So I had already been trained in these tools before becoming a mom. And yet, as life happens, as you have new circumstances, your brain is wired to scan for danger. And so it doesn't matter that I was trained in these tools. I had my first son, that's the example that's coming to my mind. And he was what we would say not a great sleeper. So he was waking up a lot during the night. And I had thoughts like, he should be sleeping more. Why is this happening? Why can't he sleep like other babies? This isn't normal. I just want to sleep. This isn't fair. Kind of all of those thoughts that were not helpful. They didn't help me, and they didn't help him sleep more. And I'm all for doing like whatever you want to do in terms of sleep training or not. That's not what this is about. This is about getting me to feel how I want to feel, and then deciding how I want to approach sleep, and not really feeling like I was at the effect of motherhood. So I applied kind of my thought work frameworks and realized I was feeling like I was at the effect of my son's night wakings. Like, I was at the effect of motherhood. And it's so justifiable. Using these tools isn't to negate what's actually happening. Like, a new mom, you are really tired. That's real. And also, what comes after that, I'm tired. Okay. Is it, I'm tired and this is awful. I'm tired and this is, I'm miserable. I'm tired and I didn't sign up for this. Or is it like, okay, I'm tired and this is harder than I thought. I'm tired and I'm going to sleep again. I'm tired and I can handle this. And so for me in that example, what I realized was it was a lie that I wanted to sleep more than I wanted to get up with my son. Okay. Because I always hold up my hands and look at my hands like, free agency. I could sleep through it. In fact, that's not even that crazy of a thing, right? By me choosing to get up, I realized, oh, I actually want to get up with my son more than I want to sleep. And it sounds like semantics, but it's not. It shifted everything. And it's harder than I thought. But it completely softened my experience. So there wasn't this like resistance and frustration, sleep. I've done, it sounds so silly to say, but it has been life-changing. I have done so much thought work, mindset work on sleep that,
Mhm.
3 kids in 3 years, like I'm kind of unfazed by it, which sounds, I still like sleep. I would still prefer to sleep, but it's sleep and what, right? For me, it's sleep and content. It's very balanced internally versus on my default, like type A firstborn daughter, like it was sleep and frustration, sleep and overwhelm, sleep and self-pity. I tend to default to self-pity, right? Like the poor me. And just being
Yeah.
able, again, for my own sake, because I'm the one who's momming here, right? No one else has, to be
Mhm.
able to notice my thoughts and notice that they're not that helpful for me, and to just
Yeah.
shift them, not to something I don't believe, but to something I actually believe. I
Mhm.
did and do believe, okay, I'm getting up with my son in the middle of the night because that's the kind of mom I want to be. And it's harder than I thought, but I can do this. And it felt so much better for me. And then from there, I've just continued to apply these tools to every little micro example in motherhood. And it's made a world of difference.
I love that example. I want you to provide maybe another example or two for slightly older children. I know you said your oldest is 5, so we could even brainstorm something here for older children. But when you say managing your mind, what
Mhm.
exactly do you mean? So do you mean we're focusing on gratitude? When we manage our mind, we're just flipping the switch on what it is that is true. I guess I'll let you elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I would say that most of my clients are not like, I have a membership. Most of the moms in there do not have young children. It's very balanced. So I'm
Okay.
coaching moms with teenagers and even adult children the same, right? Because I'm an expert in brain management. And so it doesn't really matter. So I have tons of examples, but I also have examples of my own life, a lot of school challenges and tantrums as well that I can speak to. But I'm so glad that you phrased the question in that way, because I think we can mistake the skill of thought work for gratitude. I love gratitude. It feels great to be in a state of appreciation and zoom out and think, wow, like I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful to be a mom. And I think obviously that's going to feel better sometimes, but a lot of times gratitude does require like zooming out and seeing big picture and saying like, oh yes, I'm glad I'm a mom. I'm glad I have these kids. But I'm talking about actually becoming aware of the sentences in your head that are creating the frustration in the micro moments throughout the day that zoomed out gratitude is not going to help with. So I can give you an example. Let's say that it doesn't even have to be with kind of the self-pity stuff I was talking about and feeling like you're at the effect of motherhood, but let's say you're worrying a lot, right? Or you have a lot of negative thoughts and worry about your child struggling in school. And I would encourage you to do a ton of thought work on it, because it will change your entire experience of it. So the benefit that you get is you will feel more supportive of your kids and just have a much cleaner, better experience. So let me give you a more specific example. Let's say your child is struggling. It's usually either friends or grades, right? With schoolwork or with friends is kind of the two challenges I coach on a ton. And feeling grateful, like your child can be in school or your child has had friends before or whatever it is, it's just not gonna make the shifts that I'm talking about here. So let's take the school example. Let's say your child is struggling with a class, like maybe it's math class, and you're really worried about it and you got all these negative thoughts about it. Doing thought work means, okay, what am I like taking a moment, right? Just like you would take a moment to go to the gym or whatever. It's like, what am I thinking? Okay. And you will be amazed at what you are thinking, because they're so unhelpful. It'll be thoughts like, this shouldn't be happening. My child knows better. I know my child has the potential to do better. Um, um, why is this so difficult? Like, and these thoughts again seem justified, and they are, but they're not helpful because they'll create a lot of negative emotion and a lot of worry. And this is just one example, but this compounds. And so you end up spending seasons of your life worried and trying to fix and control your kids in a way that kind of robs you of the joy that is available to you in motherhood. And so in that example, and again, it's not going to like, everything's fine, right? That's that all or nothing thinking. It's not going to like, there's nothing to worry about and there is no challenge. That would be like the toxic positivity. Or even this thought, I know I always say he because I have 3 boys. I know he's going to turn it around and he's going to do well in school, right? It sounds like such a loving thought, but your brain is so smart and it will say, yeah, but he might not. And then what? And those are the micro thoughts that you want to look at. So for example, in this case, it's saying, you know what? We have the challenge that we have today, which is on his last report card, he got, a standard lower than what we expect from him and have in our household. And I'm going to show up as this kind of mom who does X, Y, and Z, right? You stay focused on what you can control. And whatever happens in the future, I know that we're going to navigate it together. Right. And you sort of get into more acceptance with your thoughts because your brain is like a future telling machine, and it wants to make sure that everything is okay and your kids are doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're getting good grades and they're making friends. Right. And we can end up spiraling in negativity and thinking that that's useful, and it doesn't help. Right. I'm always like, if it helps you to spin in negativity and worry, have at it. Right. But it doesn't. It makes you it creates a worse experience for you because you're feeling overwhelm and frustration and negativity throughout the day and worry. And you don't show up as the mom you want to be that way. You're either overbearing or hovering or trying to control, or you're like, should I call the teacher? Should I do this? Versus, okay, I need to clean up the way that I'm thinking about this to get to a more empowered place. And then, right, it's not that we don't want to take actions or call the school or get help or whatever, but when you clean up your thoughts and your feelings first, you take such better action. It's like thinking about responding to an email when you're feeling frustrated versus responding to an email when you're feeling grounded and calm. It's the same for our kids. When we show up from the emotions we want to show up in, which presence, calm, connection, and strength too, right? Like there's some firmness that's required with boundary setting, but that's very different than overwhelm, frustration, kind of that tension that I know for myself, not speaking from an ivory tower here, that would be where my default would go to whenever there would be a challenge with my kids.
The biggest, not conflict, but the biggest issue I guess my husband and I are continually facing right now with our children is sibling rivalry, the conflict amongst them, and this lack of impulse control. And we will take it to such a point where it's like, he's going to end up punching someone and go to jail. He's just going to end up in jail. And I mean, yeah, it is kind of that doomsday mentality or just thinking the worst, but I guess I'm better at taking, when I'm trying to, how do I phrase this? When I'm trying to navigate my own worries about myself or things that directly impact Diane, I feel like I can take it to what's the worst thing that can happen. And it's like, okay, that probably won't happen. But when it's for my kids, I just worry about them and I want them to do well. And so it is that worst case scenario. Like, I don't want him to go to jail. I don't want him to feel that. Let's figure out a way now, but it seems like we don't know how to solve this. So I don't know.
Yeah, let me speak to that. Oh, there's so much there. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So a couple things for siblings. So you have a thought that you're operating on with respect to their sibling rivalry and sibling fights and all of that you're not aware of yet. And so it's something like, my kids shouldn't be fighting like this. My kids shouldn't treat each other like this. They should get along. They shouldn't punch each other. Would you agree with some version of that?
Oh, 100%.
Right. And that line of thinking argues with reality because they are, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so instead of forecasting that into jail, which of course, logically, when we're talking about it, you're like, kind of unlikely, right? Right. In the moment, it's telling yourself this, and this is what I do because I have 3 boys. Yes, they're little, but they already are like wrestling or whatever, right? I don't do that future forecasting. I think, and this is such a helpful mindset for me, it's like my kids are learning how to navigate challenging relationships in our home. They are supposed to have challenges with their siblings. I mean, think of, us as adults. We all have people who it's harder for us to be around, and we have that difficult person in our life. And we've also all interacted with people who don't handle disagreements well and who don't, it's like the adult version of a tantrum. Typically it's not punching, but it's like maybe yelling or hanging up or stonewalling. And I think we have such a beautiful opportunity as parents to yes, hold boundaries and validate feelings and do all the parenting work, but really to see our kids as, especially kids with siblings in the same household, as being given the opportunity to navigate challenges in relationships. I think that's why siblings are supposed to be different. They're supposed to learn relationship dynamics, and we get to teach them that. And that does mean I will not let you punch your brother, and stopping your brain from catastrophizing in that future error that your sort of brain is going to. It's like, oh no, this is actually very typical kid sibling behavior. And me what I always go back to in all of my work at Mom on Purpose is like, who do I want to be as a mom? Versus how do I keep my child out of jail? How do I make sure my kids aren't right? My kids aren't fighting with each other, right? All of those kinds of questions, they seem reasonable, but they're very much rooted in focusing on controlling their behavior. And it's such a subtle shift to say, who do I want to be as a mom with kids who are learning how to interact with each other? Okay, I want to make sure I'm comfortable holding boundaries. I want to make sure that they do know kind of the rules that we have. And my thought is, I expect them to push boundaries, right? Because they don't have the impulse control that it would just be really nice if they did, but they don't. And they will learn that. And just reminding yourself of, mostly do we see adult humans running around punching each other? No, right? And so kind of reminding yourself of that so that in the moment with your kids, when they're fighting or whatever they're doing, it's telling yourself thoughts like, oh yeah, this is what it's like for kids to have siblings. They're learning relationship skills here. Nothing has gone wrong. And this is the kind of mom who I want to be.
The other piece to it is that when they act in such a way, I start to feel guilty that I haven't taught them that yet. And they're 8 and 6. And to me, I'm like, shouldn't they know this by now? I know that's still very little in the grand scheme of things. I'm comparing them to my oldest child, who is also a girl. I'm sorry, it's gender stereotype, but it's just they're a little bit more wild than she was. And so she absolutely knew that at that age.
But what's the answer to that question? Shouldn't they know this by now?
Yeah, I guess that's how I feel. Shouldn't they know this by now?
But right. Answer? What's the answer to it, right?
Well, they don't. And
that's right. So this is why thought work. I love this example so much because it's like just so life changing. And again, I have done this work on myself. I'm not speaking from an ivory tower. I'm like turning around thoughts all day long, but it makes my experience so much better. So when your brain says, shouldn't they know this by now? My older daughter did, right? That's what your brain's coming up with. Brains are so fast and so smart. You have to answer that. No, I guess I was wrong. I guess my daughter did. And I guess she's different. The answer is apparently they don't know this by now. It could be because of their gender. It might not be. And I actually coach a lot of moms too with kids who have challenges and who aren't typical, and normalizing what's happening with your kid and seeking help or support or whatever it is, if that's the case, is so helpful, because you don't want to argue with the reality on a daily basis of what's happening with your kid. Like, oh, I thought kids who are 6 and 8 wouldn't act like this. I thought they would know better, but, and this is one of my favorite thoughts, I guess I was wrong about that. Just being willing to be wrong about your thoughts. And the primitive brain doesn't like that because it seeks safety in certainty. So your brain is like, okay, if I am certain the weather is going to be like this, school is going to be like this, my spouse is going to be like this, right? The more certainty you have, the safer it feels. And so your brain created a story about how kids act at this certain age, and that, you know, you're like, okay, I know what happens now. And when something suggests that that's not the case, your brain's like, wait, this is a glitch in the matrix. And one of my favorite thoughts is just having the willingness for myself to just be wrong about my thoughts. I'm like, oh, like I grew up, it's a whole different topic for a different day, but my dad was an alcoholic. And so I did so much work before becoming a mom on like what dads are supposed to be like. And I'm like, oh no, I was just wrong. A lot of dads are like X, but my dad is like Y. And also the dad for my kids is not like my dad at all. And so making space for the gray, because we want to often say, okay, no, kids are like this. They know better by 6 and 8. And it's just not that way. Every kid is different and having different experiences. And so again, it's not that if your child needs help or support or you want to teach them different skills, you absolutely can. But giving yourself more grace and doing that through managing your mind of like, oh, I was just totally wrong about that. I thought kids at this age would know, and they don't. And then with respect to the guilt, I always go back to, I'll get to the specific example, but I also like to start with like a broader perspective of like, I am supposed to be a human mom. Even if I had like every degree ever, right? And just make up this like unicorn mom who was like a robot, like the AI mom or something, right? Like I'm not supposed to be her. I'm supposed to be a human mom, which means, excuse me, which means that from time to time, I will inadvertently contribute to my kids' challenges. not intentionally, right? If you're listening to this podcast, you are not intentionally, contributing, but we're humans. I mean, even just having kids so close together, for me, I'm like, I contributed to my kids' challenges by doing that. And that's okay. And kind of giving yourself grace to be a human mom. And instead of having guilt fuel you, it's just kind of looking at, okay, is there something here that I want to teach my kids that I haven't yet? And the answer might be yes, but you can do that from such a clean place without the judgment and the guilt and the shame that I just think as women, we take so much on. And it prevents us from doing the teaching that we want to be doing. And it prevents us from having a more joyful experience and allowing for mistakes and imperfections in motherhood.
Such a good point. Why do you believe mindset is more important than routines, schedules, or parenting strategies when it comes to staying calm and grounded?
Such a good question. Because you can always control your mind. And you are always with you. So, and I am not anti-routine by any means. I love a good routine. But guess what? Kids get sick. Routines get impacted. There's a pandemic. Your whole life gets impacted. There are just circumstances that will always be outside of your control. And as long as you have a healthy human functioning brain, that is something within your control. And I do want to speak to the objection, because if I was listening to this, I'd have that too. It's like, well, sometimes I just have this barrage of negative thoughts, and you can learn how to manage those too. So one of my kind of mindset hacks is like, never believe your nighttime thoughts. So at night, your prefrontal cortex is tired. It's made decisions all day. It's had to think and be calm all day. By the end of the night, your primitive brain is the most active. And so yes, you can control your mind, but it takes energy, right? Just like going to the gym takes energy. And so just being aware of when your prefrontal brain is kind of offline can be extraordinarily helpful. So for me, kind of a constraint I have in my life is I do not believe my nighttime thoughts. So when I have thoughts about how I'm not doing a good enough job, how I'm failing, how I'm not doing good enough in my business, or whatever it is, right? We have these crazy thoughts at night. I just tell myself, maybe brain, but I'm not going to entertain it. And I'm going to revisit it tomorrow. So if it's actually something worthwhile, which 9.9 times, dare I say 10 times out of 10 in the morning, I'm like, oh yeah, that's not a big deal. That's not a thing, because I've gotten some sleep and my prefrontal brain is back online. And so I really do believe that as long as you have this tool, these sets of tools where you can manage your mind, it's something that you can always control.
So good. Okay, so wonder if everything hits at once: tantrums, messes, schedule changes, exhaustion. You mentioned we had the pandemic. That was like the biggest uprooting experience that most of us have ever had. Yeah, but when it all hits at once, how do you manage your mind in that chaos? Like, I'm curious to know you too, for you, Natalie, what you actually do.
Yeah, so it's an excellent question. And I want to point out the difference between overwhelm and overstimulation, because I taught a class on this actually a few months ago, and I think a lot of people confuse it. And overwhelm is like, I have 1,000 things to do and they're all on my to-do list and I don't know when I'm going to get it done and I feel kind of behind. And that is very different than what I think you're describing, which is overstimulation. It's like, I have 2 dogs. The dogs are barking. The baby just threw something on the floor. The toddler's screaming. Another kid needs to go to the bathroom. Like the UPS guy's at the front door, right? And that is when your body has like a sensory overload. So that is different than mindset work, but it's still work that I would kind of count, in terms of this bucket of work that we're doing. And I have done so much work on what I call expanding my capacity to feel calm in the chaos. So do I still have a capacity? Yes. Is it like greater than most people's? Most people's relative, right? But I think so. Like I've gone to that gym before. And so what I do out of the moment is I imagine that exact scenario and I imagine myself calm. So what most people do is out of the moment, they think, gosh, I hope there are no tantrums today. Gosh, I hope there's not chaos today. Gosh, I just really hope they listen to me today. And those thoughts seem so loving, but you're sort of like bracing yourself for impact. And the thought underlying that is like, I don't want this to happen. Yeah. Please don't happen, right? And instead, it's like, okay, I'm not going to do that because it's not helpful, because it does happen, right? Instead, I'm going to actually do the opposite with my thoughts. And I'm going to think out of the moment, tomorrow, there's likely going to be some chaos in my circumstances. And
Mhm.
I want to imagine that. I want to imagine exactly what I just said vividly and imagine myself feeling calm. Now, I
Mhm.
have to tell you that this takes some work. And even me, like, I'm more skilled at it now, but having
Mhm.
3 kids and 2 dogs, it took some work, breathing, expanding your capacity for that type of overstimulation. And I think doing it incrementally is really important. So avoiding mom guilt. Like if you're I always use like a gas tank analogy, and a lot of us can relate to that with respect to our spouses. If you have a like 100-gallon gas tank and your spouse has 50 or vice versa, thinking about it in that way can be really helpful so that you don't beat yourself up for not having a bigger gas tank, or in like similar being hard on your spouse if they get more overstimulated than you, and instead thinking like, okay, if I'm at 50, right? I always say like when I'm pregnant I'm like at 50, maybe less, right? It's like so much harder when I'm pregnant. And not necessarily when you're pregnant, but when you're not pregnant and your health is baseline, it's like expanding that capacity little by little. And I think we are aware of negative self-talk, right? In general, right? We want to be kinder to ourselves, but that doesn't mean it's not. A lot of my clients will go to all or nothing thinking. It's like either I'm super critical and harsh on myself, or it's just all totally fine and it doesn't matter. And in the middle, I always think of like a basketball coach. I'm like, okay, if I had a basketball game and I was playing and I lost the game, afterwards, I don't want to beat myself up, but I also don't want to say it doesn't matter. Instead, I want to look at film, look at tape and see, okay, what could I have done better? And not again to be harsh or self-critical, just to know that I'm going to play some more games. And what tools and skills do I need that would be more helpful the next game that I play? And removing the layers of shame and judgment to even give yourself access to that type of personal self-coaching and feedback, I think is the first step of it. But then after that, really just being able to kind of check in with yourself and be like, okay, I got way overstimulated there. I yelled, like that is not me at my best. I want to repair. And next time, what do I want to do? I want to give myself a timeout, and I want to do the work out of the moment to journal and to imagine the chaos and imagine me being calmer for one more minute. And it's like, it
Mhm.
really is like a skill that you can build.
Would you recommend, so for my thought of my kids going to jail, so would
Yeah.
you suggest sitting down, writing that my boys don't have impulse control, therefore they're going to jail, and then kind of like rabbit trailing that down until I get to all the various thoughts that I'm believing? How would you
No.
actually journal through that?
Yeah. So I will say it's kind of like if you're saying, how would you work out? And I could give you a workout routine, right? But you need to do that kind of like weekly, right? So I have a weekly
Yeah.
coaching program in my memberships where you can listen to and get coached. And I think that just helps you solidify these types of tools and trainings. But
Yeah.
also, I want you to just, I can give you a little bit of coaching here, which is right now, if I ask you, right, out of the moment, we're here, they're not here. Do you think that because and there is no right or wrong answer, I just want to check in with where your head's at. Do you think that your kids or your son might go to jail if he keeps acting like this?
I would say realistically, probably not, but there is like a small fear, like
Okay.
a fear.
That's really important for you to be honest with yourself there, because the coaching is different, because
Okay.
our brains like to go to worst case scenario. So all you need to
Yeah.
do here is make peace with that. I know that sounds crazy, my friends, but it actually is the most freeing. So your work is, most likely my son is not going to go to jail, but even if he did, it would be okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
How
we'd
does
have
that
to
feel?
navigate it. Like we would,
Right.
well, no, it feels okay. It's like, well, we would have to just navigate it. Just like
Yeah,
you have
it's
to.
not a problem yet. Like your brain's trying to
Mhm.
jump 1,000 steps ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is make peace with 1,000 steps ahead and then bring it back to today. But until you make peace with that, your brain's going to be like, yeah, but he could. Yeah, but he could. And you want to answer it with, like, you're right, brain, he could. And it's also not a problem right now. If he does go to jail, if it is something that happens in a decade or 2 decades from now, I know I will be the exact mom that I'm supposed to be to help him navigate that. And right now, I don't want to operate from the mindset that my son could go to jail, right? Because that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't help you as a mom, right? Instead, I want to let him be him and ask myself, what do I want to be teaching my kids right now?
Mm-hmm.
How do I want to show up and focus more on you and the mom who you want to be, and allowing your kids to be kids without sort of those, like you want to answer your brain with the big worries, but also bring it back to today and focusing on you, because your brain will run away with that and really catastrophize if you don't manage it.
Mm-hmm. I'm cracking up at the example of, oh, he's going to go to jail. I'm like, of course, that's the thing that I come up with. I was trying to
But
think of just other like examples.
really
Well,
good
he's
though.
gonna, oh, well, I'm sure that most moms of boys have felt that at some point.
100%. And even if they, so here's what happens is like you will have that recurring thought, but then a lot of moms, what they will do is they'll judge it and they'll think that's so ridiculous. Why do I even think that? And so they won't even let that thought breathe to address it head on. So then it kind of like keeps popping up in the background as it's just like annoying thought. And I
Yeah.
think too, that creates some like low grade worry. And again, just makes everyday life worse versus kind of what I'm saying is like, let's get out of the judgment. I always say like, my brain's crazy. It has crazy thoughts, right? Like you're having this thought because you have a healthy human brain that's designed to scan for the negative. It's not wired for happiness. And so being able to manage it, I think, is a lifelong skill that really does help you feel calm and present and able to connect with your kids instead of having that, worry track playing about, oh my gosh, if I don't teach him the right things, he's going to go to jail. I always like to say, like, I'm not that powerful. Okay. Like, I'm supposed to be a human mom. I'm supposed to even make mistakes. And if there's a skill that I think I want to teach my son or my kids, I'm absolutely going to do it. I'm going to be proactive. And if they even need more support than that, or there's aggression or whatever, I am going to help get them that, but not because I think I'm trying to prevent problems that aren't even problems yet.
Mm-hmm. No, so good. So good. Well, as we wrap up here, is there any other final word you want to leave with listeners? And if not, you can tell them where they can find you online.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say is that I do think that in different seasons and maybe all seasons, right? Motherhood is hard, but in different flavors, but it's not miserable. And I really don't buy into that narrative on purpose because I find, yes, it can be validating, but it creates for a such worse experience. Like we do this every day, regardless of if you're stay home, if you're work out of the home, if you're part-time, we all have different many roles. And there are tools out there that you can practice and skills that you can get really good at that can lighten up motherhood. And in having that belief that that's possible for you, I think is the first step. So thank you so much for having me. I have a podcast, Mom on Purpose with Natalie Bacon, and then everything else is just over at momonpurpose.com.
Perfect. Well, I've included all of that in the show notes, but quickly as we wrap things up, I'm going to ask you the two final questions I ask all my guests. And the first one is, what's been a beneficial resource in your life that you want to share with the listeners?
I think continued learning and balancing any sort of, I love Bravo and Housewives, right? But continued podcast listening and continued learning with an AirPod in, right? To get your mind right has really given me an edge that I think I continue to use, like from as soon as I really became an adult in law school all the way up until now in motherhood, to be able to just reinforce what I want to hear to help me be the mom that I want to be. So I'd say balancing out my entertainment, my social media, my TV kind of input with a lot of learning.
Yeah, so good. Lastly, what is something that you can't stop talking about?
Thought work. I'm obsessed with it. I'm like, do you know that there's thought work? People will stop me out at the kids museum and they're like, oh my God, your kids are so close in age. I always get comments and how do you do it? Kind of like, whoa. I'm like, thought work. I love it. It's just how I choose to think about it. It doesn't mean it's not hard. It is. And I love it.
Now that we've gone through our whole episode, especially this idea of thought work, I think I'm going to end up, I'm leaving this in, by the way. I think I'm going to switch the episode title to "You Don't Need More Patience, You Need This Mindset Strategy," because I think that what we all think that we need is we just need to control ourselves. We just need to be more patient. And it's like, really, if we could just get control of our minds, that is just the fruit that is born throughout that control. So
that is so well said. That's exactly right.
Yeah, cool. Well, it was so great talking to you today, Natalie.
It was so good to meet you.
Yes.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.